Ezra Levant here in a neighborhood in Dublin called Coolock. Standing outside a Burger King, there's lots of kids in there. Behind me, the Leisureplex. As you can see, it's all about family fun. Different ages. They even have a ballroom. You know what I mean? The room of all those little balls where kids go in. There's the Odeon Theater. This is a place for kids and for families. But right across the street there is a abandoned or empty warehouse factory. Used to be a paint company, but the government has decided to put hundreds of migrant men in there. Just men, hundreds of them. I've heard 250, I've heard 500, I've even heard 1,000. And they're just plunking them down in this residential area, an area that's actually low income, where they don't have services enough already. That has led to opposition amongst the locals. And there's no process of objection or consultation. If they were going to build a big apartment block there would be all sorts of hearings and is there enough parking? What does it do for traffic? None of that applies here. The government has announced they are putting hundreds of migrant men here, and the local community can like it or lump it. For months, a group of men have been standing outside the front with like a homemade blockade, stopping the construction from getting underway. I was here 2 months ago. Let me show you what that looked like. I'm standing in front of a protest that has been here for weeks. It is an encampment. There are men who rotate through here. There are flags, there are signs. Who are these men and what are they protesting? They're Irishmen from the neighborhood of Coolock, who are protesting an empty warehouse that used to be owned by a paint company. It's a massive warehouse in which is planned a migrant residence. What they plan to do, the government, is turn this warehouse, which used to store paint, into a home for 500 to 1,000 migrants, including some single men. They seek to put modular homes into this building. And these people in the local community are saying they can't bear that. Some of them say to have this many single men in this neighborhood with nothing to do is a risk, especially given that right across the street is the bowling alley, the Burger King, the place where all the kids mill around. Putting hundreds of military-aged foreign men unemployed right across the street could upset the neighborhood, could cause issues ranging from safety to access to services. This is not a wealthy part of Dublin. One of the complaints is who will service these newcomers. I think the number one complaint, though, talking to some of the men who have staffed the protest around the clock, is that nobody asked them. This was being foisted on the community. Well, yesterday things came to a head. There was a protest there and hundreds of people marched. Some of them got violent. They wore black balaclavas. They hurled bricks. They hurled Molotov cocktails. They torched a police car, torched some machinery. Police responded in kind. 80 riot cops wearing exoskeletons. It was a melee. Take a look at what it looked like.
They're telling you that all that's gone, that you're under a dictatorship. Without any backfire, I disgusting.
Let's take the gates! Smash them up and dash them fucking up, boys! Come on!
Well, that is the news that absolutely dominated today. We when we landed at the airport in Dublin, we saw 9 newspapers. The front page of each one was about the arrests. It wasn't about the underlying politics or the underlying grievance. It was about the 15 people who were arrested. And in a way, that's a double shame. Of course, violence is not a solution to public policy problems, but it also took all the oxygen and all the attention away from the underlying grievance in the community. I want to show you just a few of the headlines here. This is the Irish Daily Mail. Deplorable, at least 15 arrested. Violence on streets. Mob fury. Again, talking about those people who were arrested. Day of mayhem. But let me show you a story. But look at this story here. The front page story was about the mayhem. Row brews over plans to house 280 migrants in a village of 165 people. Local politicians appalled at lack of consultation with community. And here's that local Dundrum House Hotel has been earmarked for accommodating international protection applicants. And then suddenly the government announced your village of 165 will now have 280 very special guests. They're all men. They're all foreigners. You have no say in the matter. We're taking over your local inn, so goodbye to your tourism industry. And we're just doing this to you because you weren't asked, you didn't give your consent, and have no way to protest. Can you see why some people would be driven to such extremes? Let's go across the street now to where the actual riot happened. Remember when I was standing here in May? This is where the men had a kind of encampment. It reminded me a little bit of the Canadian truckers or the anti-carbon tax protest west of Calgary. There were a bunch of ordinary people here with Irish flags, and you can probably hear in the background a lot of cars are honking as they go by. Well, this is new. I think this was put up last night after the fiery, riotous protest. Enormous concrete blocks, making it very impassable. You really would have difficulty climbing over those. You wouldn't want to, that certainly wouldn't be for anyone other than a young athletic person. You wouldn't have the kind of mass protests that 90% of the protesters were yesterday. Obviously, there are people undeterred. I see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 15 people here with Irish flags. You can see they have some signs, concerned parents for Coolock, protect our children. Belina says no, supports Coolock. People honking as they go by. I mentioned that town, that village of 165 people getting 280 migrants dropped on them. You can see that massive structure behind there. Do you see that massive structure? That used to be a paint factory warehouse kind of thing, and it's empty. And at least the plan I was told, and I'm not sure if the government's being candid with this, was to have like those giant intermodal C-can boxes turned into little housing units, completely inappropriate. I mean, to turn that windowless warehouse into basically a warehouse of people, migrant men, right across the street. I showed you before this mall across the street. It's a kids mall. It's a family mall. The Burger King, the Odeon, the kids leisureplex. Imagine putting 500 single military-age migrant men there and saying, suck it up. We're the government. We're telling you how it is. Shut up, they explained. Let's go across the street and see if anyone will talk to us. My guess is they hate the media. Were you at the protest in May, the big march in the city?
Yeah, was, yeah.
What's your name?
Jade.
Nice to meet you. So yesterday was a big conflagration. We could see some of the charred.
So major. It was a big thing for Coolock, and it's what we've been trying to prevent. We didn't want this. We wanted it peaceful, kept peaceful. We've been here for 116 days, day and night. We've given up so much and sacrificed so much to be here. We tried to find a better way, but unfortunately they didn't listen. The government is letting us down once again. They will not listen to the people. The people do not want this. We've been saying no.
Is there any process, legal process, political process, zoning, planning? Is there any way that you can express yourself through the system?
Everybody is ignoring us. We've tried to reach out to everybody. We're falling on deaf ears. We're being called uneducated, jobless, you name it. We've been called a far right, racist, bigots. No one is listening to us.
In fairness, our concern here is for the concerned parents of Coolock, for us. As concerned parents, we don't want 1,000 men or 500 men, wherever they want to put in. We don't want that in here. We want the safety of our children to be able to walk and go where they want. Our children are going to be able to come down here. Across the road we have our Plex and our Burger King and a few little things over there. Our children aren't going to be allowed to do this. So they're going to be, if they're all these men coming in are unvetted. We're not going to stand there and let that happen. We're not having that. We'll die for our children.
They disrespect the way we live, you know what I mean? They have their own way of living. They disrespect our way of living.
Is there any politician, even a local councillor maybe, who's championing your point?
Not one local councillor from around here wants to know. They've ignored us and ridiculed us from day one. They don't want to know.
But why? I mean, here's the thing. I read 9 newspaper front pages today, 9. And all 9 of them were hostile. I heard on the radio condemnation. And yet just standing here, car after car is honking in support.
The support. The media do this. They send out the wrong message. They're trying to play with people's minds.
But is there no one in the community who is willing to take your point of view?
Pepper came down and he gave us a great bit of fucking support.
And who's that?
He's not from Coolock, he's from Finglas, but we have no Coolock representative that wants to come out here and support our own people. Us very people who got them in their seats.
Now, was there just recently the elections for that position?
Yeah.
Did any people who had this as an issue run?
Yes, they did.
And how did they do?
Done very, very well, but they were short 76 votes to get a seat.
And what was it a particular political party that won?
No.
They're independent?
Independents were up in the high, yeah. But no political party around here. They didn't do as well as they usually did. And
has the local politician even met with you?
No, they've ignored us. No, he didn't get in. He's not a politician. No local politician has met with us. John Lyons, one of the ladies arranged a meeting with John Lyons and he let her down. He stood her up and never turned up.
How do they get here? I know that there were some Ukrainians who were flown in, but
Our government is bringing them in.
When I was here in May, I went along the canal and there were a lot of men sleeping in camps. They were from Pakistan. One said he was from Palestine. Like, how do they physically get here? Because there's no direct flights.
They're coming from France into England.
And then they go over to Northern Ireland and come down?
The people that's over there, they're being trained, they're going to be put on a boat and put back to Rwanda. Is it Rwanda? So they're coming through Northern Ireland.
So they go to Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, and then they come
here. You see them getting taxis into O'Connell Street. Families getting out, youngsters getting out with bags and just going up to the social welfare, putting their status, and they're not being looked for papers. They're getting on planes and getting on planes with no passports, which they're destroying the passports on the planes. You need a passport to get on the plane, but when they get to the other end in Dublin,
they flushed it.
They're flushed, so they don't know where they're from or who they are or record what, like. If they're running from crime or not.
So most of them are coming from the UK, is that right?
Well, there's a lot coming from the Ukraine.
Do any come by boat?
To here? Not that I know of. They come across from France to the UK and make their way through England.
I've been to both France and the UK. Neither are war-torn countries. Both are pretty nice places. So what kind of a damn fool idea is it for Ireland to say you're possibly a refugee if you're coming from the UK or France, which are lovely places? Why is your country treating them as
in England? They'd be sent back on planes back over to Rwanda or whatever. They've sent them back, so they're afraid of that.
Why is Ireland taking them if it's so obviously?
It's safe.
I've been talking to these local Irish here in the Coolock neighborhood of Dublin about a lot of things, and I listen carefully to what they say. A lot of what they say they don't want on camera. There's a couple of reasons for that. The main one, these people have jobs, and cancel culture is shockingly powerful here. Some people here work for the government. Some people here work in a company that would be susceptible to public pressure. Uh, you can hear people when they're in the privacy of their vehicles honking their support, including government vehicles. There was a fire truck that went by and they had a siren, but they also honked. So when people have the privacy and the knowledge that they won't be ashamed or embarrassed or canceled, they show their overwhelming support. But when I ask them to come on camera to talk about some of these things, I'd say most people have said no, but when the camera's down, they talk to me at length. But one of the things I want to talk about, if I may, and I'm not very good at talking about this, that's why I wanted to interview someone, but they wouldn't. What does it mean to be Irish? What does it mean to have a country called Ireland and to be the indigenous people? Ireland was never an empire. It was never a colonizer. It didn't enslave anyone. In fact, the Irish themselves were slaves in a number of ways, including, believe it or not, African slave raiders came all the way up to Ireland and seized thousands of people, including the entire town of Baltimore was kidnapped and sold into slavery. Just a shocking tale. The Irish have been dominated by various powers. As you know, they resisted Great Britain, and they had a rebellion against the UK. It used to be called the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, but now only Northern Ireland is British. The Irish Republic is independent. Can the Irish people have a homeland of their own? I mean, don't we all just want to sometimes go home? A place that we are from and that we recognize and that has fond memories for us, but not just memories, hopes for the future. Isn't that what home is? And if Ireland isn't for the Irish, where does an Irish person feel at home? And if Irish no longer feel at home in their own country, if in their own towns and villages, where do they go? Where does a Irish refugee go? I'm right across the street from all these children's venues, and they want to put 500 men here. But this isn't even the craziest story. There's a town in County Tipperary, 165 people in that village, and it's been that way forever. And the government has announced they're putting in 280 migrants in a village of 165 people. They're not evicting the 165 Irish. They're just dominating them, overwhelming them, flooding them, diluting them. I don't want to use the word ethnically cleansing them, but I have no doubt that many of those people in that town will leave. They're destroying their home, and not just their home, the home of their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, and who knows how many centuries back. Why would you do that? And everyone gets their home. The Afghans have Afghanistan. The Persians have Iran. There are literally dozens of Arab countries. There's Italy for the Italians, France for the French. But why can't Ireland have a place that's Irish? I think in many parts of the West, there's a woke guilt. In America, some of that guilt is real over slavery. Although America shed more blood to end slavery than any other country in modern times. I think that the United Kingdom had an empire and colonies. And so did France, and so did the Netherlands, and Spain and Portugal. Ireland didn't do any of that. And I don't understand the motives of the government and supranational organizations like the UN and the World Economic Forum. I don't understand why they want to deracinate, pull out by the roots, the one place that the Irish have. I'm a Jew myself, and I think about where is home, and for me the answer is Canada. It's been my family's home for more than a century. There is a Jewish longing to be in the land of Zion. That's where the word Zionism comes from, Mount Zion, the country of Israel. Jews want a homeland. They've been in exile for so long. The Irish just have this spot. They never did anything to anybody. I just don't understand why they're doing this to themselves. And you can blame the United Nations, and you can blame the World Economic Forum, and you can blame outside forces, but at the end of the day, it is the Irish government that has allowed and decided to do this. So like I said, when I was here in May, these huge concrete blocks were not here. There was rather a makeshift sort of shantytown by protesters. You can see some of their graffiti, Coolock says no, and the torched Big Digger. After the riot last night, riot protest, it was both, these enormous blocks were placed here. I don't know how heavy they are. It wouldn't surprise me if they're a ton or more each. And you'd have to be pretty slender to slip through here. I don't know if any person could. You'd have to be pretty ambitious to climb over it. I think it could be done, but it's probably under surveillance by the police. We saw some of the police, or guard-eye as they're called, come over and tell some folks to move cars. It was actually quite a friendly interaction. I think everyone wants to tamp down the energy level since last night. But the irony of putting up a massive Mexico-style wall, a border wall style barrier here, but not at the border. As this one gentleman was saying, a lot of these so-called asylum seekers, they're coming in from the United Kingdom. Remember, if you know your geography, Ireland, it's an island. The northern part is called Northern Ireland. That's actually part of the UK. The full name of the UK is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland has an international border with the Republic of Ireland. And that's where these migrants cross. Some of them come by plane, it's true. But a lot of them come, make their way to France, go across the channel into the UK, and then make their way from Great Britain over to Northern Ireland, then come down through the land border into Ireland. Of course, Northern Ireland and the UK is not a scary place. There's no such thing as being a refugee from the UK. There's no such thing as being a refugee from France. But because Ireland will not put a border wall like this up between Northern Ireland and Ireland, they're putting it up here. You will have walls in your life. You will have doors and locks in your life. The only question is, will you have them around your country, protecting your whole country? Or will you have them in your gated community? Or will you have them in your own house? The world needs walls. They say good fences make good neighbors. What has happened, this form of urban vandalism, to put up these to block your own citizens, that's what happens when you don't block foreign citizens. We went to meet a journalist who was arrested last night. We left this zone because part of his police conditions for release are that he cannot be anywhere near here. While we were meeting with him, we heard that this gathering here had increased, so we've come straight back. It looks like, just a quick estimate, that there's approximately 100 Irish who have gathered here. Remember, yesterday there were hundreds of protesters and a number of young folks, teenagers we hear, who did throw some rocks and dominated the front pages. What's interesting is both the journalists we just spoke to and the protesters we interviewed earlier thought it was very unfortunate that rocks were thrown. And I think the main reason is because that absolutely changed the narrative from one of local community members pleading for the attention and understanding of the establishment and authorities to the shocking images that were on the front pages of all the newspapers today, masked youth throwing rocks. I have no doubt that they were genuine emotions in those youngsters throwing rocks. There is a chance they could have been agents provocateurs designed to make the Coolock residents look rough or violent or play into the stereotype. The crowd is growing. I'm not sure if there are any plans. As we showed you earlier, they have built the tall border style concrete fences there. So I don't know if there's going to be any access by the protesters to the migrant plantation, as they call it. You can see up there a police helicopter surveilling the area. Down the road, we saw 4 police vans, probably with exoskeleton wearing SWAT style riot police on standby. Of course, nothing is actually going on other than people sitting and standing and talking. I don't see anyone with a mask. There are mums and dads and kids and grandmas and grandpas. So I think that that's a reason why police actually aren't anywhere to be seen in the site. But the helicopter is a signal to people here that they're watching. I see some youths here. I mean, we heard earlier that there might be some tough kids around here who maybe don't like the cops at the best of times, see the community is being pushed around by politicians and wanted to throw a rock or two. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know who was behind those balaclavas. But for now, there are no police here, but obviously police are watching. You can see there's lads behind me with their faces covered. Those were the images that were on the front pages of the newspaper. Balaclava wearing youth throwing rocks and even incendiary devices. They know that I'm with Rebel News, and so I'm not the detested mainstream media. Otherwise, I think they would be giving me the buns rush right now. That said, the lads here, I mean, I remember what it was like to be a teenage boy. I think they might be looking for trouble. Why are you hiding your face? Can I ask?
Because police are investigating people protesting.
Are you worried about being canceled if someone knows who you are? I'm curious. You guys look sort of tough.
Yeah.
Can I tell you what? Can I ask you what brings you out here today? You don't want to talk? I'm not trying to put you in the spot. I'm just trying to listen to what you have to say. Do you think the police will give you a hard time? Do you think the guard eye will give you a hard time? All right, I'll let you be. It's not just the young masked lads putting on the pepper spray visors. I see they're handing them out en masse. I don't know if that's serious. I don't know if they really are ready to stand against police pepper spray. Maybe it's a symbol of unity. Maybe it's a symbol of defiance. But the thought of middle-aged, middle-class people putting on pepper spray masks, I don't think they're going to do much good. By the way, my experience with pepper spray or tear gas is very limited, but you need a seal around the eyes and the nose. I think it's more a symbolic statement towards the police and a criticism, almost a performance art criticism of policing yesterday.
My name is Caroline Burke. I live 10 minutes down the road. I just come here to support the people up in Coolock because we have the same issue ahead of us up in Fingers, because they have a public plantation of 160 acres ready to go for tents. So once this is dismantled now, which hopefully the public have done successfully, the next move will be they'll bring them up to Thornton Hall, which is 5 minutes from my house. Okay,
so let me understand what you're saying. There's this big factory here. It's sort of empty, and they want to turn that into a migrant center. You're worried that whether or not this goes ahead, there's another 160-acre park or natural habitat. You're worried about that will be turned into a kind of refugee camp?
Yeah, that's the intention. We have people.
How do you know that's the intention? Have they said so?
Yes, it's been disclosed, and there's people up there camping, sleeping there in tents to prevent this and the gates.
Oh, so you're saying Irish people are sort of squatting on the land to keep out those who would build the refugee camp?
They have the gates locked and they're manning the gates, trying to prevent a plantation to go in there.
They sound like very dramatic, even desperate acts.
Well, we are desperate. I mean, nobody's safe. The children can't walk to school. Parents can't. Women are afraid. Even men are afraid. It's like we had a steady flow of immigration for years here, but this is chaotic. This is like we don't know who these people are. There's no criminal backgrounds. As far as I know, in Europe, they've opened mental institutions, released the people because they don't want to pay for them anymore, and criminals. So with them coming here with no documents, we don't know what kind of criminal background they have. And believe me, they have criminal backgrounds because they're coming here straight away and doing criminal activities.
Nice to see you again. I met you in May. I saw you in May when you had sort of a...
We had a brilliant camp built, yeah. We had a brilliant camp built. It was big, I didn't do it myself. Obviously, the lads all got together. They got the pallets. They built it up. Oh, they had it beautiful looking. They had rooms and everything built in it, yeah. People donated couches and beds and stuff, so they had it like that. It was nice. And it was, I'm not even from up here. I am originally from Dublin, but the south side of Dublin. This is north side. And I'm living in Carlow a good few years now. But I came up here to give me a bit of support, you know what I mean? And I was more than welcomed. You know, you hear all these bad things about, oh, Coolock this, Coolock that, they're bad. They're not. They didn't turn around and say, you're not from around here, you piss off. They didn't say nothing like that to me. They actually turned around and said, oh, you're very welcome. And they came up there and they gave me food for the dogs, they gave me everything. Like I had stuff myself anyway for the dogs. They said, no, we'll give you more. And they were very nice and welcoming people. That's what they were.
So how did it end? When the police came in to dismantle your setup, how did that go?
Well, I wasn't actually here now when it happened, but I actually seen the video. I'm on one of the pages there to do with Coolock. And when the lads started putting up on the page like, that the guards were all over the place here and that they surrounded everything and they were told they only had a couple of minutes to move and they kind of got out of there, they didn't have much, what could they do? And then they come in and bulldozed the whole lot out of it.
Bulldozed it?
Everything, yeah, bulldozed the whole lot. Smashed everything, so you can see it all behind the back of there. It was all smashed up. People's belongings, everything destroyed, you know what I mean? Gave them a few minutes and that was it, like. Didn't ask them peacefully, whatever, they just come in and that was it. Wrecked everything, which was an awful shame, do you know what I mean? It is terrible. These people are here, as they said themselves, they're here to protect our communities. That's what they're about, to protect our communities.
There's a lot of reasons this is happening, but I think that it could not happen without the consent and approval and energy and dedication of the Irish government. There are foreign forces that would want this. The migrants themselves want this, but none of this can happen without your Prime Minister, your Taoiseach. So why, at the end of the day, is Ireland choosing to go down this path?
Well, Ireland is not choosing. The government are pushing this.
Why?
Well, they obviously have an agenda. Well, for the European Union, the WHO, they obviously work for other people. They're certainly not working for us because you see what happened here yesterday. The people were attacked. They're trying to twist it.
Are you scared that you will be pepper sprayed today?
Well, I'm sure I'm sure they're going to come out in force, like they did yesterday. Of course they will.
Now, why would the police come out? Because right now it's a peaceful, I'm not going to say like a festival feeling, but it's upbeat, it's positive, there's flags. There's some young lads sort of stomping their feet like a horse ready to race, but it's completely peaceful here. No one can get through those cement barricades, so why would the police act? No one's blocking the roads. Why wouldn't the police just let this burn itself out?
Well, they'll come up with some idea, like soliciting or whatever. They'll come up with something.
What happened yesterday to cause the police to move in? I mean, I know there were some youths who were throwing rocks and whatnot, but that only happened because the police were there. The police are nowhere to be seen here. I can't see. Oh, they're way down there and way down there. So if the police stay back, doesn't this burn itself out like a fire?
Well, I don't think they see it like that. You know, we don't know what they're capable of now at this stage because as far as we're concerned, they don't work for us. They're protecting the migrants. They're not protecting the Irish.
Well, we've been here a few hours now, and there's lots of folks. Do you have anything to say?
I love cocaine.
There you go. I honestly couldn't understand what he said. He loves something. I didn't catch what it was. There's a lot of young people out here, a lot of young guys. And where there's young guys, there's young gals. And the whole community's out here. There's mums and dads. and a lot of teenagers, I'd say between 14 and 20, have face masks. And last night, they did what young men sometimes do. They got into a scuffle, more than a scuffle. They threw rocks and, in some cases, crude Molotov cocktails at police. The police charged them. There was violence, 15 arrests. And, of course, there was an arson in the area of the proposed migrant center itself. Obviously, arson is a crime, and so is throwing bricks and incendiary devices. And I suppose from that point of view, the police had no choice whatsoever but to deploy to stop the arson in the migrant center. And I don't think police can abide people throwing rocks. Today, the migrant center is walled off by high concrete fences. There's no arson, and police have been fine, giving the protesters a wide berth. There is nothing to provoke the police to engage, so for hours, the crowd has stood on either side of this road. What's interesting is there is no sign whatsoever of any wiggle room, any compromise on the part of the government. Let me show you two videos that I saw on the internet while I was here today. The first is the state broadcaster, which here is called RTE, tried to find a single person in the neighborhood of Coolock that supported the migrant center. Here's how that looked.
On the streets around Coolock today, the events of last night still fresh in the minds. And as with most things, opinion divided on the issues that have fixed attention onto the place.
I'm delighted on it. They shouldn't be bringing them migrants into the country. And that's my honest opinion.
And why is that?
Why is that? Because why don't they house the Irish people? The Irish people should be housed first.
It says an awful lot about something like that can bring hordes of people into one area, and the area itself gets the reputation, and it's not even the locals that are causing the problem.
I didn't like the disturbance, but at the end of the day, people are right in what they're doing. Like, they're standing up for themselves in the community. It's about our kids as well. So I get where they're coming from.
You won't be going in. The people in the area won't allow that. Can't. There might be more protests, eh? Well, if they're going in there's going to be a lot more protests.
Yeah, they couldn't find one. But here is the government saying they will not bend. They will continue. Take a look.
Absolutely not. Plans will continue as set out. It is so important that we can provide accommodation to men, women and children who are fleeing extremely difficult circumstances. We have an obligation to provide international protection. It will be done in consultation with the communities. And I have to stress this point. This does not reflect the communities in Coolock, so many of whom have been extremely welcoming to so many who need our support and our help. But this is unacceptable behaviour. Communications cannot be used as an excuse for these type of violent scenes.
Why would any political leader, why would the police, why would politicians, why would journalists look at the hundreds of local residents opposed to this and say, we are going to go ahead, damn the torpedoes? It's because if they blink in even one of these towns or cities, then that gives courage to anti-migration activists anywhere, that they can stop it. By the way, the reason I'm wearing this press vest is that there was a point there earlier we thought maybe things would get a little spicy, and I wanted to indicate in some way to police that even though I was standing amongst the protesters, I was a journalist, not a protester myself. Ireland seems absolutely dead set in hurtling forward in its mass immigration policy. I'm actually astonished by it. Tomorrow, we're going to do something a little bit different. If our plans maintain, we're going to go to a very small village about 2 hours from here in the county of Tipperary, a village of 175 people, where they're going to bring 280 migrants. Do the math there. They're going to more than double the size of the village with foreigners, almost all of them men, who they're going to absolutely transform and destroy the village in the name of what? It's going to be a crazy day. It won't be a day with a lot of people like this. There's more people here than live in the entire village we propose to go to. This is a crazy place, and I don't understand the basic question, why? Maybe we'll get some answers. Until tomorrow, On behalf of Rebel News, I'm here in Dublin, Ireland, with our videographer Lincoln J. And of course, in the U.S., we have Efron Monsanto and Yankee Pollock on the ground at the Milwaukee Republican Convention. To you at home, good night, and keep fighting for freedom. No, I don't know if you heard me. I'll say it again. Keep fighting for freedom.